we're going to go over the wheel basics. So you want your rib, your wooden tool, and then you want a needle tool or a toothpick. That way you can check stage your pieces and the tools can help you form your piece. So you're going to start out with clay. It might not be this big, but it should be either in a ball or a gumdrop shape. And first off, you want to wet your wheel. That way your clay will stick to the wheel. Then you're going to center your piece and throw the clay try to make it on the center of the wheel. Eventually you're going to have to move it over anyway, so it's not a big deal if it's not centered. Then you want to pat your clay down to make sure that it's secure to the wheel. That way when you're forming your piece, it doesn't fly off on you. Okay, once it's all flattened and smooth, you're going to take some water on your hands and you're going to start coning your piece. Make sure that your fingers are grabbing the clay from the bottom and pulling the whole thing up. You don't want to have your hands placed at two different parts. You're going to get spirals like this right here. So I'm going to fix that. And now that my piece is coned, you're going to take 2 thumbs on top of your piece, hands around it, make sure you have water in your hands and your piece is wet, and you're going to push down while you're spinning the wheel. This is to start centering your piece. Okay, so once my piece is down, I want to try to center it. That means you want it to go in the middle of the wheel. That way when you form your piece, that you're not getting uneven sides. So you want to put more water in your piece. I typically put one hand on top with this part of my hand on the top of the piece of clay. You can also use your palm if you want, but for me it's easier to do this. And you're going to have your other hand on your knee, or your elbow on your knee, and then you're going to guide this, keep the clay in the center while you push it down. Make sure you're keeping your clay wet so it's malleable. And I'm pretty good at this. It might take you guys a couple tries, so if you can't get it centered on the first try, cone it again and then go back down. So my piece is actually centered, and if you look when you spin it, that I'm going to put like a little dot in the center, and when you take it off, it's right exactly in the middle. Sometimes that's my way of checking it to make sure that it's not off-centered. Okay, so once we have this, you're going to take 2 thumbs or even fingers down the middle as long as you're guiding one hand or the other. I use my 2 thumbs to start my piece, so I put both of my elbows on my thighs, and I have my hands spread out like this, kind of, I don't know, like trying to do moose antlers, but they're together. So 2 thumbs in the middle, and you're just going to go and push down. Try to make sure it's even on, like pushing down evenly on both sides. That way you create a better hole in the center. Okay, once you got that hole, I like to shape mine just a little bit to make sure. I'm actually going to check to see how far down I am with my needle tool or your toothpick. So I make sure mine's clean, or gotta get it clean. Okay, I'm gonna poke the center of my piece. This hole will eventually go away. Okay, let me do something different. And my piece is probably about this thick, and so I can probably go down just a little bit further. It doesn't need to be super thin on the bottom. It needs to be kind of thick, so I'm just gonna go down a little bit more, and that's good. So next we're going to start shaping the sides. So I either have, typically you have your index finger, or sorry, your middle finger and your thumb guiding your piece as you go up. So you grab the clay with your thumb and your middle finger kind of guides you to make sure you're going at the same pace. And you're just going to make sure your piece is wet, and you're going to squeeze the clay in between your middle finger and your thumb, and slowly move your hand up. This doesn't need to be fast, because if it's fast, you might throw off the walls of your piece. Make sure your hands are constantly wet. That way it's easier to move the clay in between your fingers. Okay, so let's pretend this is what I want my piece to look like. I'm going to take my rib and I'm going to clean up the sides. That way your piece looks nicer when it comes off the wheel. And you can clean it up any way you want. I do typically the side, and then I use the needle just to clean up the bottom. That way it's easier to cut with my wire. Which I forgot that you also need your clay wire. And you can you can actually shape your piece with this tool if you really want to. Have it on the inside, clean it out, whatever you want. It's whatever shape you want to make your piece. Then this tool does the exact same thing. You can clean up with it too. It gets kind of closer and finer details because it has it's a thinner or a narrower wedge on it. So then I would take a clay wire between this one, and you can leave water in your wheel. There's many different ways to cut off your piece. Easiest one, I wrap it around my fingers and I push down on my clay wheel and take some water with me. That way my wire cuts cleaner through. It's just going to make sure it stays in the wheel or you're going to cut up on it. And then right now it should be able to lift away. Just like that. And that water makes your piece slide right off. We're good.